everybody. Welcome again to another isolation edition of the CGA podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hall. Back with me, as always, my co-host, Nick Daines. How are you, mate?
Whoosh. I'm very good. Thank you, bro. Yeah, very good. Very good. Getting
So, very special guest today. We've got undefeated UFC fighter, Jack Shore. How are you, mate?
Yes, lads. I'm all good.
Awesome. So, how you been? How you been since the lockdown? Obviously, we kind of had a little chat beforehand, but you were scheduled to fight on UFC London. That all got closed. So what's the plan after that? What happens?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a shock to the system for me, really. Also, I'm in the gym sort of 6 days a week, every night, every morning, fight booked or not. So to have them sort of close down the gyms for a long time, it's probably been the longest in my life I've been about actually being in a gym, for one period at a time. And obviously the fight got cancelled as well, so that was another new experience. I've never had a fight cancelled or had to pull out from a fight before, so to deal with that was just another one to add to the pile. But it is what it is. I suppose there's not a lot I can do about it personally. There's not too much. There's no point crying over spilled milk, as they say, and stressing out over things that can't be helped. So it is what it is. I'm obviously busted to get back training. I'm doing little bits. Obviously in Wales now they've allowed us to train under social distancing as long as we're pro athletes. So luckily I fall in that category. But again, there's only so much we can do, MMA wise, whilst keeping the distance. So it's one of them. I'm just hoping that every time they review the lockdown, I'm hoping that they're just going to pass it over, but they seem to keep delaying it. But
same as us, mate. Come on. There's going to mention something about combat sports that we're allowed to train again. It's dragging on now. But
we need to get back doing something. It's so. I am now at my wit's end with running and cycling. I'm strangely starting to kind of enjoy it in a weird way, because it's awful. Running anywhere is terrible, and
but you're a big boy. You're a big boy, Nick.
What? Yeah, 99.2 now.
Yes.
I'm officially under 100 kilos, so the lockdown's doing something for me.
I've always been a runner. Like as far with fight camps, if I run, probably 4 or 5 times a week. But the one thing that got me, I find I've been doing a lot is cycling a lot. And I've even bought a road bike, and I was one of those that used to slag off the cyclers and get off the fucking roads, doing my head in, let me back. And now I've gone full circle and turned into one of them. I've got all the gear and no idea now. I'm an avid cycling fan now, thanks to Boris Johnson locking this down.
Have you gone full mammal?
Yeah, all in, full helmet, we got the pump, the toolkit, a lot. I've gone for it.
Nick's just bought a padded underpants.
Padded short.
I've just got mine. They've just arrived because I'll tell you what, mate, the pain is real. I'm the same. I haven't cycled for 15 years. I bought a road bike, and the saddles are unbelievable. And I tell you what, the pain is real.
You need to get a numbing cream, because trust me, them padded shorts, they're good for about 20 minutes, and then you start to see that little world. It doesn't make any difference at all. You get the cream in, trust me.
I find myself standing up on the bike just to give it just a sweet release. It's not the legs I'm worried about. My arse, though, a switch. Running and cycling, that seems to help slightly. Do one day running, next day cycling, and the cycling's definitely helped with my running. But I just find it so hard. The running. So what's the secret? You always ran then, Jack?
Yeah, I think it's just conditioning yourself to it. I mean, when I started running when I was, a couple of times a week when I was probably 18. I started amateur boxing. And obviously they're very old school, the amateur boxing coaches, so they're constantly up, get out running. And I had my first amateur fight, and I was a machine for 2 rounds, and I was blowing out my arse in the third. So I thought, I need to start. I need to get this road work in. So ever since then, I've been an avid runner. Obviously, over time, my distance and my pacing have got better, just because I've become more used to it. To start, I would be happy with 3-4K, whereas now you know, like yesterday I think I did a 10 miler, and you know, I'm comfortable. You know, it's tough, don't get me wrong on the lungs, but I'm comfortable doing it. So I think a lot of it is the same as grappling or striking. I think the more you do it, the more you know how to work your muscles, how to control your breathing, how to pace yourself as well. You know, like you see novices or white belts, and they start rolling, they're manic as they come for the first, and they're blown for the fourth. And you
Fun
see,
to watch, though.
I've seen now the people I've gone running with, they go hard as they can for a kilometre, and then for the next 4 they lack in behind a little bit. So it's the same as anything. I think it's just practice, and breathing is a big thing, and getting your pacing down. But you know, fortunately now I think I'm at the stage where I've been doing it for that long. My body's just conditioned to it, so I can sort of, apart from like a marathon distance, I think I could sort of set any sort of 5, 10, 15k and be able to sort of cruise my way through it just through muscle memory.
I feel like there's something in that, though. There's something in running in particular, because it's so hard. I think, like, and mentally tough. I think it kind of pushes people. If you can push past those own mental barriers for yourself, and you go in and you do the training, it's not, you know you can go further. You know you can push yourself further because you've already broken that in your own head.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is mental, especially like I do, obviously because I run so often when the gym's out and I use the treadmill probably. Well, I don't ever road run really in fight camp unless, you know, it's a nice summer's day or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously on the treadmill a lot, and it can be a bit tedious doing 10 mile, like 16 kilometers on the treadmill. It's a lot of it is mental, like you said. It's your body telling you, oh, let's get off. I've had a guts full. But in essence, if you can switch off and sort of take your mind elsewhere, then you can bite down and get on with it, like, and push a lot further and a lot harder. But I think all the fittest fighters, you know, right through from boxing to even MMA. I mean, not so much the best fighters, but the fittest fighters always tend to be big runners. You look at the Diaz brothers; they both, you know, running and cycling. You look at Floyd Mayweather, how fit he was. He was constantly running without getting tired. Mike Tyson was a big runner. Yeah. So I think there's definitely something. You know, there's definitely something to it, rather than, you know, it's a cheap hobby to, you know, buy a pair of trainers and go for a run.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So let's have a little bit of background about yourself. Like what got you started? I know your dad is a BJJ black belt, so maybe a little bit of history there. Like, where did he get started? And then obviously brought you up.
Yeah, so it's quite a funny one, because I started training kickboxing at I was 6 years of age, and like I always say, I think it was just one of them at the time. My parents, you know, it's like as just to get me up the house, probably to stop me running right in the house. I was playing football, and I think he just thought, you know, martial arts is a bit of self-defense as well. So he got me into the local kickboxing club. But it turns out, obviously, the kickboxing club was a martial arts club rather than just a kickboxing club. So they run like jiu-jitsu classes, taekwondo classes, even MMA classes at the time. Wow. So I actually started probably 2-3 months before my old man, believe it or not. So obviously after speaking to the coaches and stuff like that, he started tagging along to the adult classes. And one of the main boys at the gym when he first started was Joe Duffy, who's obviously renowned now for beating Conor McGregor, and he's in the UFC himself. And that's how he got started out. I think he was 28 or 29 when he first started, so obviously quite late looking at it now, because it wasn't such a big thing back then. But so we were sort of doing it side by side. Obviously, he was taking it a lot more serious than me because of the age. To me, it was just an hobby, and I was happy to go for my belts as a youngster. I wasn't competing all that much, whereas my old man was competing some weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and then, you know, the next week he'd come round and he'd compete. And then so he took me like a duck in the water, you know. I can always remember as a kid, he was gone every weekend, out fighting, out grappling, kumites at the time. Yeah. So he just naturally did that, and I think he sort of made the switch then to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a little bit. I think he went to a Royce Gracie seminar after a couple of years of training, and Royce gave him his blue belt. And then I think because what was happening at our gym was the instructor was spending a lot of time with Joe, so my old man was taking the classes a lot. Yeah. And it just transitioned from that to him thinking, well, you know, I'm basically running this gym, so I just as well start my own and have a go at it from there. And that's where Shore MMA now, but Tulare Combat at the time was born. And we was just, I remember being 12 and we was training under a little nightclub cellar as well, where we was marking out. It was a tiny room. You know, if you wanted to use a toilet, you had to put like a torch on your head to go to the room and use the nightclub toilets, because they were downstairs. So proper dark and dingy down there. So that's how we got started out. And then obviously for me, it just progressed from being in the gym with my dad and all the boys like Chris Edwards, Jack Marshman, Martin McDonough. They were all, even from a young age, they were all training, and I was on the mat with them. I was the only kid there at the time. There was no such thing as kids MMA classes. So that's where it came from, obviously. And then growing up around them boys, as I got a little bit older, you know, you grow a little bit closer, and watching them fight on Batman and Cage Warriors and the big shows, I always thought, you know. Yeah. And I was pretty good. Like, although I wasn't the most athletic kid in the world, I was a little chubby kid. I was pretty good technically. Like I was a quick learner. If I was showed something, I'd pick it up fast. So despite being unathletic, I had that. And everyone always said to me, you know, you're gonna go on to fight. And, you know, it's like as a kid, like that sounds good. But it did turn out, you know, to be as I got older. You know, started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think I started competing in mainly, and then obviously went to amateur boxing, to amateur MMA, to pro MMA then in the long run.
Was that always the plan then? You know, was that always the plan to do MMA as a sport, or was it more Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then you moved into MMA from there?
It was always obviously in the back of my head. I always wanted to do MMA because that was predominantly what I was training. I was training although I was predominantly competing in BJJ, I was constantly training every aspect. So I was boxing, Thai boxing, wrestling at the time, you know, despite it not being wrestling like it is today, we were still trying to wrestle and obviously sparring with the little gloves on. So I always wanted to do MMA, but I always say to the kids in the gym now, they don't realise how lucky they are with the setup, because back when I was 13, 14, there was no such thing as kids competing in MMA. You just heard of, you know. So I just naturally gravitated towards BJJ just because it was something for me to compete in. And I think looking back, probably my dad probably had it in his head that, you know, I needed some competition experience to get me used to the nerves and you know, it's like the nerves and even a little competition like the Iceman Opens we used to do. It's the nerves and the adrenaline when you start, and it's going under man hour, your arms pump up, and then you got to try and cool yourself down for the next fight. So in the long run, I imagine, or looking back even, he probably looked at it in a way as to get me competition ready then for when I did step up. I had a little stint at amateur boxing where I thought, you know, I was a bad little boxer. I was training with Gavin Rees at our gym, who was a former world champion, and I remember thinking, perhaps I'd like to be a boxer. And I had a couple of amateur fights for Kumkan ABC, and just naturally, because I don't know, I started gravitating. I always fanboyed the UFC and loved watching it, and I just naturally got pulled back towards MMA then, and I ended up going down that route because the amateur setup started getting a bit better. You know, it wasn't. There used to be like no headshot, semi-pro and pro. Whereas now, when I started gravitating, they come up with the unified rule set of obviously, which is what we know now, which is pro rules but with less time limits, bigger gloves and no elbows, which suited me better, to be honest, because I was a decent boxer, but I was obviously mainly a grappler, and I'd always trained with head, you know, not going like a banshee, but I'd always trained as a kid with head shots, with ground and pound. So when the rule set started to come in, that, you know, everyone was doing this unified amateur rule set, that's when I started to think, well, you know, that's better suited to my style. Perhaps I'll look at that, and it ended up. I had one fight, and I was like, book me another one, and then before I knew it, I had no interest in amateur boxing anymore.
So have you always been like an avid competitor then? Always enjoyed competing and just really wanted to push, or did you find that, like you said, your dad was kind of pushing you that way to be able to compete at a higher level more comfortably? It definitely always come from me, the competitive side. I'm not a sore loser, but I don't like losing. But I've always been keen for competition. I've always wanted to compete. And obviously at the time I was at my old man constantly, come on, I want to fight, I want to compete. But, you know, he couldn't get me a MMA fight at the time. I was 14, 15, and there was no such thing. So he would sign me up for these BJJ comps, and, you know, I would do the work. We'd start off with the Iceman Open, and then we started signing up for the Welsh Open, and then the British BJJ Open. And obviously he was competing as well. So it was one of them ones. It was like, well, kill two birds with one stone. If he's going to compete, I'd think I'll sign up then and I'll do it. And it just stemmed from me. I've always been competitive. Like I said, from sort of the age of 14, I probably competed sort of a minimum of every 3 months. You know, regularly. It's only since this
this lockdown really, that this is the longest I've had from any sort of competition. And even that's out of my hands. So I've always been competitive. I've never been one of the gym fighters, you know, who's great in the gym, but never really wanted to step up and compete. And there's nothing wrong with being that guy, but that was just never me. I always wanted the win and the medals and stuff like that. So yeah, it's always been in me. It's been in me from a young age, to say the least. Yeah,
because I mean, has that translated now? Like, does that help you? I mean, competing so regularly for such a long time, that must play a big role in your fights recently. Do you still get the nerves? Does it still find it hard?
Yeah, it's definitely played, like you said, because I'm been so used to that competition environment. Like, and another factor that people probably don't appreciate going into it is I was always around whenever the boys had big fights. Even if I won fights, I was always out in the back or what. Yeah. Even my dad, when he used to fight, when I was like 10, 11, I'd watch him warm up, walk to the ring with him, because he didn't fight in cages at the time. He was in a ring. That's how old school. Same with Marshman and Martin and all that. You know, I'd be out the back watching them warm up, watching them have their hands wrapped. So I was always used to that environment. And obviously, when I fight now, like a lot of people, I think a lot of people sort of think I'm bullshitting, but I don't get those nerves. You know, I'm not sat there nervous to go out and fight. You get the butterflies and the adrenaline and everything, but I'm not sat there, you know, scared and nervous to go out there and fight. And I think it's just because I'm so used to that sort of competition environment. Yeah. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with, like, you look at someone like GSP who's been openly honest about saying, you know, he's about to walk out and he's going to be sick and he doesn't want to go, his legs are heavy, and that's the best fighter in the world. So I think everyone's different, but for me, I think it was just the fact that I've been doing it so long, I'm so used to it that, you know, I not that I don't care, but I'm not nervous, I'm not worried about going out there. I just think, you know, I've trained all my life for it, and what will be.
Yeah. Comfortable in your environment, and like you got comfortable with that through, like you say, through other people's and being in the back and that kind of thing. But having that, being comfortable in your own scenario, your own skin, and what's going to happen. Like, you've been there so many times, even when it's not you, and then when it is you, it's just going to be easier, isn't it? It's got to be, I suppose.
Yeah, well, Chael Sonnen did a good little spiel on it before, and he said, you know, he explained it like walking on a plank of wood. If you just put a plank of wood on the floor, so that, you know, you'd walk across it, you know, easily. If you put a plank of wood 50 feet in the air, and if you fall off, you're going to fall and smack and die, you think twice about walking the plank of wood. It's the same with MMA. You know, we spar every day in the gym, albeit we wear shin guards and head guards, but the reality of it is we're sparring and doing it every single day in the gym. But then you take the shin guards and the head guards away, you had a crowd, you had some cameras, some lights, you had, you know, all your friends and family there watching, and the fact that they're going to record the result, and it's the same game, it's just a different scenario. So I think you just got to get used to being in that environment and that competitive scenario, and just get
good way of putting it. A good way of putting it. That, like, do you know what I mean? I think, you know, when we think about, like, I used to get super anxious about just doing, you know, jiu-jitsu competitions, and like for like a couple of weeks before, I'd be like, you know, and every now and then be like, oh God, when you remember it's coming up, and you know, that's like nothing, no one cares, no one's interested, you know what I mean? And then, like, and you do it all, like, every day, like you say, in the gym, and it's nothing different, but for some reason these things get built up, don't they? You kind of build it up in your brain, and it's some that other people care about it, you know. I mean, it's obviously very different when you're doing it, like, you know, but it's interesting that you're able to look at it in that way as well, because there are lots of other factors. There are lots of cameras and lights and TV and all this stuff, you know.
Well, you take it, like, even you look at it in a jiu-jitsu sense, and it's like, you know, you've probably done it yourself. You can roll for 90 minutes in the gym, sometimes 5-minute round, 1-minute changeover, and you go for 90 minutes. Yeah. You sign up to a competition, you have 3 5-minute rounds, and you can't feel your arms and your legs.
One 5-minute round.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exactly like, I've been in the same MMA. I can spar for 2 hours in the gym, as long as you give me a minute rest every 5 minutes. You know, my cardio's good. And then, but you have 3 5-minute rounds in the cage, and you come out and feel like you've been hit by a bus. It's just the adrenaline and everything else that factors in. But if you can get comfortable and get used to controlling that, then I think, you know, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ways of doing that other than just proper fight experience, or are you able to replicate like that and kind of make it easier on yourself at any, you know, is there anything you can do for that?
I know a lot. Like I know a lot of fighters sort of reenact like a fight. Then once a week leading up to the fight, you know, they'll do the walkout, they'll do the corners and stuff like that. But I've never done nothing like that. I think a lot of it's just mindset. If you can get your mind right and get in that sort of frame of mind where, you know, you think, well, in 5-6 weeks, this is what's going to happen, and if it goes this way, if it goes that way, you know, this will happen and that will happen. I think it's just getting your mind right and just getting, like you said, just getting comfortable. It's not a natural scenario, realistically. You know, to be in. If you had to have a street fight now, some guy walked up on the street and said, you know, and bang, it'd be a flip of the switch, you'd start fighting straight away. When you've got a plan for 12 weeks and you know that guy is fighting training to fight you for those 12 weeks, and he's up every morning running just the same as you, and he's doing his 3 sessions a day, and you know, it's not a natural scenario really then. So it's a tough one to get a mind right for. But if you can crack the mental game, then I think the physical game it becomes a lot easier, just because it's so tough on the mind in every aspect. A lot tougher, I think, than what it is on the body. So, and I've never done no sports psychology or nothing like that. I've just always been lucky. I think that I'm quite mentally strong, and that I look at it in that sense. And if I can get my mind right, then I know my body will just follow suit anyway. And a big factor, I think, is just taking away all the pressure off your own shoulders, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if I lost a fight now, people would probably assume that I'd be devastated, because, you've had undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro. You've had this, you've had that. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is, if I do lose a fight, my mother and father will still love me, my girlfriend will still love me, I still have my house and it's not like I lose a fight and that's it, life over, end of the world. So the quicker you get in that mindset, obviously helps deal with the pressure as well. Because some people, and to me, don't get me wrong, to me, fighting is the be all and end all. Like, it's all I do. But I think to some people, it's like that in the sense of, you know, that is their life, and if that doesn't go right, then everything outside of it comes falling down. So I think you've got to be 100% invested, but you've got to have that life outside of it as well to try and take the pressure off a little bit.
You can compartmentalize, isn't it? You can put things in different boxes. Like that's like when you said there, like if you get in a street fight, you're off, right? It's like, I often think that when you're at tournaments, you think, I'd fight right now. Like, you know, it's the beforehand, and that's the mindset and getting your head straight. Like, if you can I think 100%, 90% of it is just getting that bit done, and then the rest of it's fine. You know, you can do all the other stuff, right? And like you say, like, you're not losing, you know, at some point everyone loses something at some point. Hopefully you won't, but do you know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be a challenge at some point. Like, all these guys who are, you know, top of echelons in the UFC and everything, at some point they'll lose a fight, and it's almost worth preparing for that at some point, I guess, in a career.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's like I always say to people, like, people say, oh, you're undefeated, this and that. It's like I've lost amateur boxing fights, I've lost a good few grappling matches. You know, I've done rounds in the gym where I think, well, I definitely won that one if it went to the scorecard. So, you know, I know what it's not like, you know, I've won every single round of every single fight I've ever had. I know what it's like to drop a couple of points, to lose in competition. So it's one of them. It's like, I don't like losing, but if it happens, it happens. You know, once the result is in, the result's in. You've just got to move on and get on with it. It's like, and again, a lot of it, the worst part is the mental game, because the build-up, everything like that. If you lose mentally physically after a loss, you know, you might have a rough loss. You know, we've took a bit of a beating, but after a couple of days, physically you're going to be fine. It's the mental aspect that you're probably that's going to linger with you. But if you can get that right, then, you know, I think you'll probably enjoy fighting a lot more than what you would if you're so hard on yourself.
Yeah, because I mean, being undefeated in MMA, the pressure must build up. Right, so that, like, the weight of your shot, because there's so many different ways to lose in MMA. To be undefeated is really rare, like, and pretty, like, amazing, really. So that, do you feel that weight of that pressure, or is that, again, just, you know, prepare yourself mentally as best you can, and then do the best you can, then whatever happens.
Yeah, like, I think I don't really struggle with the weight on the shoulders, just because of how I prepare myself beforehand. So I mean, I don't mean that as in, like, I prepare myself mentally like you could do that. I mean, when I prepare for a fight, I don't, you know, I know by the end of the fight camp, there's nothing more that I could have done. You know, I couldn't train any harder. I don't miss a session unless I physically gotta miss a session, as in an injury. You know, I don't cut no corners on my diet. I don't cut no corners on my training, on my sleep. So I know, you know, when it comes to actually stepping in there and fighting, I'm 100% as ready as I could be. You know, give or take a couple of percent for maybe the odd little injury or whatever, but you know, that's something you can't really account for. But I think, as in my head, I always know going in there, I'm 100% or I'm 99%. This is the best version of me it could be. So, you know, I think having that confidence in my preparation, you know, although I'll never say to myself, "Oh, you might lose this one," I think it's, you know, if I do lose, well, it'll be because I lost to the better fighter, not because of my lack of preparation or me cutting corners. So that's another big thing that factors into it. I think
that always reminds me of Chuck Liddell. I think Chuck Liddell had a similar thing. They called him the Iceman because he used to sleep backstage, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like, well, how can you sleep? You've got a fight coming up before, and he'd be like, "Well, I've done everything I possibly can for this fight. There's nothing to be worried about anymore. I've done my prep. There's nothing. I can't be scared of going."
Yeah, that's it. You can't. There's no point winding yourself up. Or, you know, you've done what you've got to do to get there, and what will be. Yeah. And to be honest, when it's the build up that's the worst on the mind. Once the ref says go and you throw the first one or two punches, you're not thinking about all that anyway. You're not thinking about, oh, what if I lose? What's he got? You're just thinking, right, I better get through this now, and I got to try and win the fight, and that's just the best way to be, because you're fighting on instinct anyway when you're in there. So it's not like you can't really. You're not thinking about when you're in there, if I lose, what's so and so going to think, and what am I going to do, and am I going to do that? It's just get in there and get on with it.
Yeah. So what was it like coming up through Cage Warriors, and then I know now you're in the UFC, but I mean, you won the Cage Warriors championship, so like kind of take us through that. I did see as well on your highlights, you got a standing rear naked choke, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, Cage Warriors, in all fairness to them, they looked after me really well. So I won as an amateur last one off. I won the IMAFs, which took me to 12-0, and I got a couple of offers. Bama was interested.
Yeah.
There's a gym in Bahrain called KHK, which is run by one of the royal family out there.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted to sign me up on a basis then that it's Brave FC now is the promotion, but it wasn't about the time. It was still they were still looking at getting that going. So they wanted.
I've never heard of that one. I've never heard.
Yeah, it's a Middle Eastern one. It is. It's run by I can't remember the guy's name. He's part of the royal family or something out there. So they wanted to sign me up on the base I would fight for that promotion when it's up and running. So there was a couple of dodgy things in the contract that we sort of was like, we're not sure on that. And my dad's pretty friendly with Ian Dean, obviously, who's the matchmaker for Cage Warriors. And in fairness to Ian, he said, "Oh, if you send the contract, I'll have a read through it and see what's what." So it turned out a couple of weeks later, then Graham Boylan rings my old man and wanted to start the Cage Warriors Wales thing, and he also wanted to sign me on a management contract and sign me to a multi-fight with Cage Warriors, obviously. Yeah. So ever since I signed with them, they great, and you know, Graham and Ian have been nothing but good to me. He gets a lot of slack, Graham, sometimes, because he's a bit harsh with the tongue, but I, you know, speaking on personal experience, everything he's ever promised me, you know, as far as fights and, you know, deals on the contract, and I'll get you this, I'll get you that, and I promise, you've always come through with it. And even from my first fight on Cage, like I was 1-0. I think I was the lowest. I had the smallest record on the card, and I was opening up the main card on BT Sport at the time. So, you know, to be 21, 1-0 pro, to open up the main card on BT Sport and fight that is unheard of. So he promised me that, and you know, it's like, yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe fight past, but we'll see about BT. And every fight I ever had, he made sure I had all eyes on me, and constantly they slowly built me up to a point where I was ready for a title shot. And you know, they put a lot of faith in me then to ask me to headline a couple of cards in Wales at a big venue as well. Like, they always doing shows in the Newport Arena. Also, I was a big ticket seller. I amassed a bit of a following. And they said, "Do you think you could, you think we could sell out the Ice Arena?" And I said, "Well, give it a go." Like, it's a lot. I think the Newport Centre used to have something like 1,400. I think the Ice Arena is 4,000. So I said, "We'll give it a go." So you have to chuck a bit of promo behind me. We'll have that. But obviously then they stepped it up a notch again. Then, like, they had me on BT doing interviews. They had me on the UFC page. I like videos of me before I even signed. They had me doing stuff with the Welsh rugby team. They had me down at the ice arena for the Cardiff Devils game, on the ice before the game, people clapping me, and it's like everything they've done for me, I think, from signing with them to obviously having all the promo, to fighting for the belt, and winning the belt, to defending the belt. They built me up perfectly ready for that step into the UFC, because they never give me, in all fairness, they never give me an easy fight. No. They give me the right fights. They matched me properly, but they always made sure that, it was never a walkover. They always made sure it was going to be a better opponent every time, a little step up, which obviously...
It's so important, isn't it? It doesn't happen very often, especially when people get into the UFC early in their career. They don't get those easy fights, do they? They don't get that build-up. They don't get the experience that they possibly need before they enter a bigger arena like that. I always think Cage Warriors, they must have a really good relationship with the UFC, because it seems like a really good way. Like, loads of fighters come through Cage Warriors to get into the UFC. So it's probably it was a really good choice to go that route if you wanted UFC as your kind of end goal.
Yeah, well, that's it. And I think they got that in mind, like with people like myself, obviously, where they built me up to be this poster boy for Wales. Obviously, Graham manages me as well, so that would mean when I got to the UFC, obviously, he goes from being my promoter then to strictly my manager. So, they made sure I was, because when you get to the UFC, there is no easy fight. You could fight. You could fight the guy in your division who's the lowest rank, but it's still not a walkover. It's still going to be a tough fight. So,
no way.
I mean, too many people, you see it a lot more with the Americans, because there's a bigger talent pool out there, and they do a lot more shows. They bring in some guys, for shows, local can sell them some tickets, and they're out of their league. For years, I mean, I was like 4-0, 5-0, watching guys in the UFC, thinking, well, I would beat these now. Yeah. And I wouldn't personally feel like I could go in the UFC and be ready. So they do a perfect job, Cage Warriors, as building you up to that title, getting you the right fights, getting you the right opportunities before sending you on. And I think they know their place in the market as well. I think they're not trying to compete with the UFC. No. They're happy to be their feeder show. And they run their name now off, well, look, we've had 90 guys go from our show to the UFC. So if you want to get in the UFC, and you fight and train in Europe, we're who you need to be with.
I agree. I think it's awesome. It's a really great show. So, like, winning the title is one thing, but then were you getting offers from the UFC after you won the title, or was it always your plan to kind of defend it before you moved on?
Yeah, so I had, I think I had 2 or 3 offers before I actually signed. I beat well, I first got offered after my second Cage Warriors fight. I was only 3-0, and it was a Jack Marshman had signed and Brett Johns, and it was a short notice fight on the same card as them. And again, this just speaks, volumes about Graham, because being my man at the time, he could have sent me in and cashed in on a percentage of my purse. Yeah. I could have lost 2 fights and been back out there, but he sort of wanted to look at the bigger picture. He said no before even asking me, so I didn't have to say in the first one anyway. But I beat Von Lee then, which took me to 8-0, and I broke my hand. And typically they came then about 2 months later for a short notice fight on a couple of weeks late notice, and obviously I couldn't fight because I had a broken hand. I couldn't train properly. So I then signed another 5-fight deal with Cage Warriors, like a good contract, a good money contract. It made it worth my while being there. And the initial plan was I had to be there for 5 fights. It was no release in the contract, because that's how good the money was. Yeah. And then I beat Dale for the belt. And Marshman was fighting Phillips up in UFC London, and Sean Shelby was hounding Graham again and saying, when can we have him? And Graham said, he's got a fight, but we'll have it. We'll see what happens with this fight. And obviously I beat Malone then quite comfortably. Yeah. And I just think as a team, and obviously with Graham, and even Graham was in on it as well, we had a look at the division, and I think I just took out the best 2 guys. Yeah. I was number 1. I took out the 2 and 3 spots. Yeah. We were both on a table, both meant to beat me, and then I took them out, in quite good fashion, and I dominated both fights. And we were just like, what? There was nothing there fight-wise at the time for me that would have done anything for my career. It would have done more then for the person I was fighting than it would have for me. So they spoke to the hierarchy, as they say, and they agreed, and they were happy if the UFC were interested, to let me go. And I think within a week of beating Malone, they'd been in touch and wanted to sign me up. So, it all worked out.
It seemed like the perfect transition. Like, you win your belt, you defend it, solidify your position as the best, and then you move into the UFC. So I think that was.
They let you keep the rest of the money from the other fights you didn't have to have, or you have to give that back.
I wish they did. I wish they did. No, they pay me per fight. So if they were paying me a one-off, I just took the money and ran, deleted it, on your bike. See you later.
That's pretty quick. Like you could just be off. Like.
Yeah. Well, our running would have come in useful if they did that.
So 4,000 was the most that you had previously. So how many people were in the arena when you fought in the UFC?
I think it was I did see it was either 10 or 11,000.
It's another massive jump, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it get to a point, like say like 1,600 to 4,000, you're probably going to notice that there's more people in the crowd, but then 4,000 to that many, is there much difference then?
Yeah, it didn't seem much different. I don't know, maybe the arena felt bigger, but the crowd, the atmosphere didn't necessarily.
Yeah.
I think that might have just been because obviously when I fought in front of the 4,000, I was main event, and 90% of the arena was there to watch me fight. Whereas I went to Copenhagen, the fight I was first on.
Yeah.
Out of the 10,000 there, probably 150 people had come to watch me. I'm not saying that people there didn't know I was, but they hadn't come specifically to watch me. They'd come to watch the full card. So I think, but yeah, like you said, I don't think you would notice a massive difference. The only way I think that I'd notice is if it was like a stadium fight, or if it was a main card slot, then at sort of Madison Square Garden or the MGM, where all the superstars are there to watch, all the celebrities, then it would feel a little bit different, I think. But I never really took, like, the walkout, and that's great in the ice arena, but I don't take when I'm in there, you don't take too much notice of the crowd. Like, people asking me, obviously there's fighting behind closed doors and everything, and it wouldn't make a difference to me because
right. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How would you feel about having no crowd at all? Like it?
Yeah, well, I've done it not completely no crowd. When I fought in the IMAFs, there was 2 cages running at the same time, and I think there was probably less than 40, 50 people in the venue. And I included all the staff and everyone. So I've got a little bit of experience with it. But to me, when you go in there, you shut off and you focus on the fight. You get little blips on the crowd, but nothing that's going to change my performance. I know a lot of people fight off the atmosphere. And, people like Justin Gaethje then, they said in the last fight, maybe if there had been a crowd, it might have gone a different way because he does feed off the crowd. But as much as I love the support and I love the walkout and all the fans cheering and the big pop afterwards when I'm in there, I just focused on the man trying to take my head off in front of me and not too much on what everyone else is.
Hey, I'm shouting, "Go on, Jack!" from over there.
Yeah.
So have you heard from the UFC since? Because I've seen that Fight Island is actually a thing now in Abu Dhabi. So I don't know if they've been in touch or if they any fighters from this end have been got in touch with to fight over there.
Yeah, I spoke to Graham because obviously Graham deals with them.
Yeah,
they're looking to sort of get the guys who missed out on because there was a couple of cards cancelled. They're looking to get us guys sort of back in the mix and try and get us booked because obviously I didn't even think we'd fight this year, to be honest. So
no.
So I'm trying to do what I can now, training wise, to make sure that if a call does come, I'll be ready. But it'd be nice to go. Not many people are going to say they got to fight on the island, so
I know
it'd be a nice feather in the cap for me to say that I've gone out there and done it. So fingers crossed. In the next week or so, I'll have a bit more.
Awesome.
And I'll know a bit more on sort of dates and location and stuff like. I know it's in the island, but a bit more specific rather than on an island in Abu Dhabi.
I know, because I feel really sorry for like people like Leon Edwards, who was going to fight Tyrone Woodley, and then obviously Tyrone Woodley fought Gilbert Burns, lost to Gilbert Burns, so it must suck for him. And again for you, like you were on that card, so like to be able to now not be on, so like it's up in the air, you must have had a plan, know exactly what you're doing for everything now to be thrown out the window. I know.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I've obviously I've been signed for a year now. So my plan was I fought in September and we opened the new gym. So my plan was to fight obviously in March, and I wanted a quick turnaround for sort of July June time. But obviously that would have put me 2 fights deep then by sort of August. So I could have potentially got 3 fights in this year. But obviously with the March card being cancelled, hopefully I can get a fight now in July August time, and then get one at the end of the year, but still, in the space of 12 months, I've only had 2 fights. Which I know I like to be active, especially when I'm not injured. But again, it is what it is. I mean, no one's to blame. I don't suppose. If we can't get out there, we can't get out there. And if they can't open up venues over here, then that what can we do?
Exactly.
And when you in obviously Graham will does all your negotiations and stuff, and has more to do with the quantity and that kind of thing of what the expectations are within your contract. But usually, with just someone like yourself who's come from that, champion of another promotion and through here, do you get a number of fights on a deal? Is it an ad hoc where they usually go, it's a year, we'll try and get you in this many, and you'll get that much money for each one if you can do them, or is it like
it's based on so you can sign a 4-fight deal, and obviously you get your set, so you get this much to show, this much to win on your first fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose, it stays the same. If you win, it goes up to this much. If you win again, but I think I don't know I have to double check with Graham, but I'm pretty sure because it's a 4-fight contract. I think if you win the first 2 or 3, then the option to renegotiate then, providing they want, or they might make you ride it out. But I know a lot of guys have had 2 sort of big wins, 2 or 3 big wins, and they renegotiated then.
Yeah, I don't see there wouldn't be anything in them not to renegotiate, would there? And I think it was definitely a shame for Leon with Tyron Woodley, because I think for Gilbert Burns performed amazingly, but I think that would have been a good fight for him then as well.
I do.
Yeah, I think the Woodley fight would have been perfect for Leon, because not to say that Woodley's past it, but obviously I don't think he's not currently fighting how he did a couple of years ago. So I'm although it would be maybe a little bit easier fight compared to what it would have been 2 years ago, Woodley, he's still Tyron Woodley. He was still ranked number 1. And if he could have performed how Gilbert Burns performed, then Gilbert Burns is in for the title fight now. So if he had beat Woodley in London, he probably would have been. They couldn't match Usman and Masvidal. They probably would have said, Leon. Well, I actually seen online that they offered Leon the title fight, but he had complications with training and stuff like that. So he didn't feel like he could prepare tidy, which is it is tough at the minute, especially because I see up in America, a lot of them are just training as normal, training like nothing's happened. So it is a bit.
The states open now, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I mean that's tough when you think, you were not allowed to do anything really compared to what they're doing. So I can see, especially if you lose, he's lost to Usman before, so if he loses again for the belt and it's through lack of proper preparation, he's probably not going to get another shot unless someone else wins the belt. So I can see his logic behind it, but at the same time, it's like hopefully that doesn't come back to bite them, and they don't have. They don't be sour over it and don't think, he didn't take it, so that's his chance gone. Hopefully they look at the bigger picture and look at the logistics of it for him, because Leon is the elite of the elite, and I think he's capable. I'm not saying he would beat everyone, but he's capable of beating everyone. He could beat Usman and win the belt. He's got that skill set, so it would be nice to see him get his chance, even if he didn't win.
I'd love it. So was that a temptation? I mean, because other places are open, is it a temptation for you to kind of get your team together and go somewhere like the States or something so you can get some training in? Or was that never really an option?
I did think about possibly going to the PI, but the problem we've got is the US, I've been told, they're not accepting any visas, new application for visas at the minute. So unless you've got a visa, obviously you can't go. So that would of course. And obviously my coaches and all that, they got jobs and they got families, so it'd be tough for them to just, we're not as awesome as my gym is facility wise, we're not in a position where we could just sort of shut up shop and I take a group of 10 guys. Number one, it would be financing it, and number two is how many of them guys would be prepared just to drop their life to come and train me for 4 weeks just for a fight with there's no real reward for them in it. So it's not like I'm on McGregor money where I can say here's 50 grand, come and train for 4 weeks. So it is a tough one. It is we just got to make do with what we got here at the minute. I mean, hopefully now when they review it, I think it's within the next couple of days and a week or whatever, that we get some sort of leniency where we can actually get something done. Fingers crossed.
So I'm hoping so much. So I got one more question for you. Tank. So we've got a thing about nicknames here. Who gave you the nickname and how did you get it?
It's a fun. It goes back a lot further than you think. I seen on I had a fight on against Vaughan Lee, and someone said Tank's a good nickname. They said because Vaughan Lee is firing missiles, and they're just bouncing off him. Last fight, and I thought that's a good reason. But I wish the actual reason is better. It stemmed from I was probably, I would have said 8 or 9, and it was a Saturday, and I went training with my old man and one of his partners, Simon Owner, and they had a spar, and you know what it's like as a kid, they let you jump in, and so Simon let me jump in, and I was swinging at the little chubby kid, swinging the fist of fury at him, and he said to me, he's like, Tank Abbott, he said, look at him, he's just head down and swinging, and I think the little custard on the guts as well come into it as well. So he's like Tank Abbott, and ever since Simon started calling me the Tank, it was at the time. And, it literally just stuck from there. Like obviously my old man started calling me it, but I swear to God, even now, like my family call me. I've got my cousins and they call me Tank. They don't even know why they call me Tank, but they know me as. All my friends call me Tank. You know, there's people who sort of I'm not even that friendly with. I'll see them in the game, and they're like, all right, Tank, and it's like the only people that really call me Jack now is sort of people I don't know, or my mother and my girlfriend, and my mother-in-law, everyone else, even my father-in-law calls me Tank. So it's one of them. I think even if I can retire from fighting now, and I'd still always be known as Tank, I think it's not really a fight name. It is a lifelong nickname. It's one of them.
I love it.
They're the best. They're the best.
We are always constantly. So I teach jiu-jitsu, and I'm always constantly trying to give white belts nicknames and hope that they stick, because I want them to last forever. And then when people come,
that's your legacy, isn't it, Sam? Your legacy in like sort of mental abuse to white is giving them.
Nicknames are all right. Some nicknames are all right.
My old man's the same. There's one of my best friends, Mike. I've known Mike. We went through school together, so I've known him since I was 5 years of age, so probably over 20 years. And when he was 14, we opened up a kids class. He starts, obviously I'm down there, so he starts coming and training. And the summer would come. It's like as a kid, they want to be out, have a park and drinking and stuff like that. So you'd always text my old man with like an excuse. Oh, I can't come tonight. My dad have got to do this, or I've got to walk the dog, or something like that. So my old man started calling Mike the excuse. And so this went on for about a year. We hit about 16, and fair play to Mike. It's hard for me to call him Mike now because I want to say his other name, but he's trained flat out, and he starts training 5 nights a week, doubling up, doing the kids and the adults. So he goes up to my old man and he goes, you can't call me the excuse no more, he said. I'm here every night. And my mum goes, what should we call you then? He said, I don't know. My old man, he goes, we'll call you the truth, he said. You don't tell excuses no more, you're always telling the truth. And I swear to God, people who don't even know that he trains call him Truth. There's like boys from the local rugby team like, all right, Truth. I call him Truth. I haven't called him Mike, apart from other people, for about probably pushing 10 years almost. So he's the Truth. So everyone at the gym has got a mental nickname, and 9 times out of 10 they will stick. That's
a good nickname. The ones that people who are not training call you that nickname.
One of the best ones coming out of our gym at the moment is a new guy, not relatively newish guy, Simon. And he's a unit, big guy. Like he came up, we went up to Grappling Industries in London right before this lockdown happened, and he fought up there, first competition and all that. And one of the black belts commented, going, Simon, you're an absolute horse of a man. So forevermore, he is called Bojack.
There's a guy, another classic one. There's a guy who came to train with us years ago. He's a character to say the least. And he turns up the gym and he's got a Tyson tattoo on his face. So it's only right we all start calling him Tyson. And he hasn't trained now for probably 10 plus years, and obviously he's in jail now as he goes. But he has been out in between. And when we chat, if someone called him Ryan to me, I'd be like, who's Ryan? But you call him Tyson, I think, oh, I know Tyson. And just stuff like that. They're the best ones. The one that none just call you in the gym, or none just call you when you walk up to a fight.
The best. So good. Anyway, man, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
No worries, anytime.
Got to have some shout outs and sponsors. Where should people go to follow you, find you, and check some stuff out?
Yeah, follow. I'm Jack Shore MMA, Insta and Twitter. Jack Tank Show on Facebook. Don't add. I keep saying this. People don't add my personal page because I always get about 50 ads every couple of days. And I will not. If I don't know you, I won't accept you. So if you want to keep up to date, follow the Jack Tank Show page. Sponsor wise, I got loads of sponsors. I'll probably forget someone if I shout them all out individually, but. Go follow me on social, and they're all on there. And obviously, when I give them a mention, give them a follow. And if you're looking for products that they do, then feel free to buy them and use a couple of my codes. Because support them because they support me. That's what they say.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Hope anyway. We hope you get a fight soon, and we look forward to seeing it. Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Jack.